Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wise Up. Anthony Romeo. We're another show, season 3, kicking it off. We're having not one, not two, but the third time the Siemon company has graced us with their presence. Today, we have Ryan Harris coming from the state of California, and he's here to talk to us about the on-again, off-again breakup situation with J-Lo and A-Rod. And, being that he's a coastal, he's an expert in dating relationships and things like that. But no, enough about that, because I'm not that funny. I'm not that good looking. I'm not going to waste anybody's time. What we've been doing on WISEUP is we've been bringing on experts in the field of IT infrastructure, layer 1, and the importance of it. Now, many of you are working remotely these days, or you're streaming some type of service. Now, how does that happen? Some people don't care how it happens. They just want it to happen. It's when it doesn't happen when the frustration sets in. So if you're at work and you can't continue with that Zoom call or Teams call or whatever kind of service platform you're on, or you're trying to download your favorite series, Disney or whomever, and it's just scrolling, these are the reason why we're bringing these guests on WISEUP to talk about quality layer 1 infrastructure, products that matter. So Ryan's coming to us today from the Siemon company. And as I mentioned before, we've had the Siemon company on twice already, talk about converged IT with Bob Allen, and went well. And we did have some podcast magic. I have to say, Bob did a phenomenal job, and no pressure whatsoever. I think you're going to do a fabulous job. You're much better looking than Bob, if that matters.
Oh, thank you. I already knew that, but I'm glad that you noticed.
In any case, the main point that we're trying to, elaborate on today is, point-to-point versus transceivers. So Ryan, before we get into that, if you don't mind, tell people, who you are at the Siemon company, what is it that you do there besides somebody at the Siemon company, whether it be Henry Siemon or somebody signing your check. What is it that you do?
So I'm the sales and market manager for high-speed interconnects, high-speed interconnects, direct attached copper, AOC cables. I've been working at the Siemon company since 2012. Back then, we were selling SFP Plus and also mini SAS cables, primarily going after server connections. And that's still what we're doing today, going after server connections, but we have a much stronger and broader product mix, 10 gig, all the way up to 100 gig. And we're also looking into future PAM4 speeds as well, again, to support downlinks and then also short reach uplinks in the data center. Before working at the Siemon company, I was selling PCB board connectors to tier 1 network equipment OEMs. So the IO cages for, say, the SFP Plus, also RJ45 type connectors for Ethernet switches. And so I was doing that for approximately, 3 or 4 years before the Siemon company. So, altogether, I have, over 10 years experience in the IO connection and network equipment. And, it's been good to me. It's always changing. So,
No, it's definitely an evolution, right? As we see now with cable companies going to the web more so than ever before, AI, your data centers on the edge, intelligent buildings, and the speed, the bandwidths are coming to a screeching somewhat halt in certain cases because they're not deploying the right infrastructure to support the needs of the many. So, you bring up a good conversation about the point-to-point cables versus transceivers. What are the differences in some of that?
Well, today a lot of customers are deploying higher speed server connections, but not all connections are created equal. Some offer greater value. This is especially true when you're looking at server connections with point-to-point cables versus transceivers. So a point-to-point cable is a complete cable assembly with a small form factor pluggable module attached to the cable assembly. And so it's a complete cable assembly compared to a transceiver, which is a a standalone piece that needs a jumper cable and another transceiver on the other end. So one transceiver is approximately 2x to 3x the cost of a complete point-to-point cable. Also, one transceiver end is approximately 1 watt of power draw, and the direct attached copper, for example, have 0 power draw. So there's some great savings in using point-to-point cables in server.
Well, if you multiply that on that, so you're not talking about one cable, you're talking about, if we're talking about a data center, how many of these cables collectively going to add up and, be power hogs. So it's something that everybody's conscious about. So it's not just the network architect that's concerned, it's going to be the facilities person that's going to be some type of cost savings, would you not say?
Oh, for sure.
And you're listening again to Wise Up, Anthony Romeo with Ryan Harris and the Siemon Company. We're talking about how you save money on your car insurance. Just 15% saves you. Now, so we're talking about point-to-point versus transceivers, especially specifically in a data center environment. So in a data center environment, a lot of the conversations that we've had, and Ryan and I were talking about that a while back, is power consumption. It's not only the flexibility and the scalability of the transceiver versus the point-to-point, right, Ryan? But it would have to do with some of the power, right? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, as everybody knows, data centers are power hogs. So at the server level, when you're using a transceiver inside of a cabinet, it's 1 watt per end. And that's on, say, a 10 gig or a 25 gig. And so the server connection is usually short reach. And so you'll have 1 watt times 2. So you'll need a transceiver on each end. So that's, essentially 2 watts. And typically inside of a cabinet, you have 35 servers. So 35 times 2 is 70 watts. So 70 watts is being used on the server connection inside of the cabinet. When you're using direct attach copper, there's practically 0 power draw. So there's huge power savings within the cabinet itself. Then there's also a multiplier effect at the data center. So when you're saving power in the server, it also multiplies at the data center level approximately 2x. So that 70 watt savings at the cabinet could turn into 140 watts at the data center. And typical server deployments are usually 10 cabinets, 100 cabinets. This adds up very quickly. So
right.
Saving power at the server connection is
what you're saying, it makes perfect
value.
sense, because the value add here, what I'm hearing, and what our guests are probably listening to as well, is that the cable itself is a commodity. But then when it ties into all the other aspects, there's an additional savings that it could be, there's an ROI there to show that, right? Yes,
for sure. And there's also, additional options that you can take advantage of with point-to-point cables versus transceivers. There's color options, for example, and I see a lot of customers that like using colors, red, white, blue, and black to distinguish, 10 gig versus 25 gig connections, or also 40 gig versus 100 gig connections. And these color coding options aren't typically available with transceivers and jumper cables. So there's also, more available lengths and, half meter lengths, and they're just easier to deploy because you don't have to worry about any transceiver or fiber optic compatibility concerns.
No, great points. Makes a lot of sense. And as we've been saying, Ryan, it makes a lot of sense that a data center needs some bandwidth, right? And in addition to that, the trade-off, not utilizing additional power, is another plus factor that you bring up.
Yes. And they're easier to deploy as well.
As far as, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that they're easier to deploy as well. They're a complete cable assembly, factory terminated, factory tested to create peace of mind that they're going to work both ends.
And the Siemon company is known to work with reputable, reliable distribution channel partners like Wise Components, and there's others out there. But full disclosure out there, Wise Components has been doing this since 1975, working with the IT Layer 1 infrastructure. And the Siemon company is one of our premier lines that we carry. So it is definitely a breath of fresh air talking with Ryan about point-to-point versus the transceivers and the benefits and the trade-offs of both. And again, folks, you've been listening to us for 3 seasons, jibber jabber about what's behind the walls, what's above the ceilings, what's working in the data center. But more so now than ever before, it's become a major factor of your everyday life. So, and as we evolve, and what we're seeing on the horizon with the edge network and these data centers that are coming online, these co-locations that are going everywhere, what Ryan's bringing to the table is a quality product that's scalable, affordable, and has some additional cost savings, as you pointed out. So again, this is WISEUP, which can be listened to iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, any way you stream could be listened to. What we're going to do is we're going to attach a lot of the parts and pieces that Ryan had brought up on our show. We're going to put it in the show notes. So be sure to check out the show notes because they are jam-packed with a lot of powerful, detailed information on the product set solution, and as well as where you could get some additional information on it if you need be. So we're happy to have Ryan here today and talking about that. Ryan, in a real world, in a real life scenario, and some of the things that get you out of bed in the morning, what do you like other than the J-Lo, A-Rod saga? What do you like working with at the Siemon company that particularly in your job, in your role?
Well, there's always new challenges every day, whether it be a new question that a customer comes up with in regards to their application, or if there's a new competitor that we need to figure out how to compete against, or if there's a new product innovation that I need to wrap my head around. There's always something different and new and exciting. That's what I like best about my job.
Let me ask you this, and this is more of a future area. So we were talking about where you've been, what you're currently doing at the Siemon company. What's on the horizon? What's the R&D team looking into based on trends that we're seeing in the industry today? Is there anything that that you could share that you're able to, or if you tell me, you'll have to kill me?
I kind of mentioned it at the beginning. Server connections are getting faster. Ethernet connections are getting faster. Right now, we're primarily selling 25 gig and 100 gig cables in high volume, but we are looking at the next gen high volume cables as well. Those would be the PAM4, copper, 50 gig, 200 gig, AOC, 400 gig. Those are what we're looking at as our next connectivity, primarily because we believe that these point-to-point cables, again, can be a lower power solution for next gen high-speed server connections.
No, great. Thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate that. The information that you've alluded to, that what Siemon's doing and what your colleague Bob Allen is doing, it shows that it's not a sleazy salesman. You're really committed to what you're selling. You're constantly looking at R&D. You're looking at industry trends. You're looking at things. Why do you need to make that fancy cable? Well, with the way that things are going today, and as you pointed out, there's going to be additional connections at a high speed. These are reasons why. So, Ryan, with that said, do you have any particular, not funny stories, but some of the customers that you've dealt with that have a unique set of requests and that you were able to deliver in a timely manner?
I guess the funniest thing that I've seen recently, and it's not really funny, it's probably pretty common, is that I'll have customers that are connecting, 25 gig switches to, 10 gig servers. And, sometimes they're having a hard time making the connection, and they're looking for, a 25 gig connection, but, both ends aren't at the same speed. And so, I've seen that happen a few times. Again, your speed on your network connection, or the connection on the equipment, is the slowest piece. So the slowest piece of your network, or the slowest piece of your connection, whether it's a 10 gig server and a 25 gig switch, is going to be 10 gig.
And the certifications for the manufacturers that you're dealing with, I'm sure it comes with the paperwork to prove that it's supported by Cisco or Arista, all the manufacturers.
So we primarily sell Ethernet or MSA compliant cables. And so, for example, our 25 gig cables are 25G base CR1, and they work in IEEE 802.3 BY standards. And so that's a pretty, I'm using the word again, industry standard type connection, and it's widely used. So
yeah. So again, folks, if you're listening to, I'm talking with Ryan Harris. This is on WISEUP. And as I was saying, Ryan, you gave a very detailed answer, which is great. But again, folks, if you're listening, you want to see all the things that Ryan just mentioned, the IEEE, the TIA, and other standards for the industry standards, we'll put that in the show notes so that you have that, so you can see that and use it as a body of reference. So Ryan, tell me that funny story you were talking about earlier.
Well, I was saying that, I used to travel a lot, and in traveling a lot, I had a status to where I was always guaranteed an aisle seat. And so lately I've just been hanging out here in my office and haven't been traveling. It's been a year basically since I've been traveling. And so I'm not sure if I have my status anymore. So I'm really not looking forward to the middle seat,
No status.
I remember back in the day when I'd sit in the aisle seat and I'd feel sorry for anybody sitting next to me. And now I'm worried I'm going to be the guy in the middle, hoping that doesn't happen.
Well, I hope everybody to get back on the road and travel, as I too one time used to be traveling a lot back and forth to the coast, and I do miss it. I do like the fact that people are upgrading their data centers, so that's a plus, right? So, yeah. But it would be nice to interact with people and see people face to face versus on a Zoom call or a Teams call, or just conducting emails. And in this post-COVID world, it'd be nice to get back and seeing people. Again, folks, I'm Anthony Romeo. This has been another fantastic episode of WISEUP. We're speaking with Ryan Harris of the Siemon Company, and we thank him tremendously for his time talking to us about point-to-point versus transceivers and some of the solutions that the Siemon Company has to offer. For additional information, please check out our show notes. We'd love you to continue to comment, like, and share as you see it on the social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. And I could be found on local post office, there's my mug shot, or Anthony Romeo at wisecomponents.com. Again, from all of us at WISEUP, thanks for listening, and keep on listening. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it. Whenever you have a new data center deployment, consider options and reach out for help.
Thanks, guys.